Okay, I'm going to read to you my speaking proposal that I've written, sorry, and I wrote this letter, to Genevieve Athens, who's no longer the director of the Autism Society of Oregon. Now it's Toby Rates. But I basically had said that as an individual on the autism spectrum, I'm honored to have accepted the chapter representative, the Lane County region position. And as a representative, I plan to make the most of this position, both in the support and education sector and the advocacy sector. And as part of the support sector, I have a great desire to share my experiences and advice for others on the autism spectrum whenever possible. And I have probably been through more in my life than most on the spectrum. It would be an excellent individual to speak at the ASO and other functions. My background. I have led a rather traumatic life for a person on the spectrum. When I was around 3, my paternal grandmother was hospitalized for a severe stroke. When I was about 7 or 8, I walked in one day to invite my maternal grandmother to lunch with my mother, and I had caught my maternal grandmother in the middle of heart failure. In the later 80s, early 90s, my maternal grandfather was diagnosed with prostate cancer. On the evening of my mom's birthday in 1990, it was her 40th birthday, my dad was hospitalized with severe chest pains and had to have open heart surgery. Shortly thereafter, my paternal grandmother had 2 more strokes, along with dementia, causing her to be hospitalized and eventually put in a care home. In September of 1994, my maternal grandmother passed away. She had an aortic aneurysm, which apparently either moved to her brain or ruptured in her aorta. She also had previously suffered a small stroke and suffered from lung cancer and emphysema. I had also been with her in the previous few years when she broke her hip, and I temporarily looked after her. In December of 1995, my other grandmother, my father's mother, passed away, her series of strokes. In spring of 1995, my mother was diagnosed with inoperable lung cancer, and she was lucky to have been able to see me graduate high school. It unfortunately metastasized to her brain, and she died 5 months after I graduated in November. On the 27th, the day after Thanksgiving, she was given 6 months and only got a month and a half, and she died that was in 1996, and she had been, like I said, been given 6 months, and unfortunately only got a month and a half. Through all this horror, I also endured the horror of bullying and questions at school. On April 30th, Easter 1997, my maternal grandfather passed away from his cancer, and my mother had made me executor of his will if something happened to her in order to keep my uncle from taking away my inheritance, as he unfortunately did after my mother's death. And my cousin is giving me things she gets every now and then, and wants to give me my grandmother's china cabinet and some other stuff. And even though I deserve so much more, since I was his and my grandmother's last and favorite grandchild, this put strain on me because it was sheer theft on my uncle's part, and we could not fight it because it had a sentence in it preventing this, which we were told was good in Oregon. But I would still do something if I could, even though the statute of limitations has run out. In October of this same year, my paternal grandfather passed away from massive heart disease. Shortly thereafter, my father endured 4 hip surgeries and suffered another heart attack. He had open heart surgery in 1990. He is still living, thankfully. However, he is my only remaining family member. He is currently in poor health, and I fear losing him, as I will be alone, scared, and have the overwhelming responsibility of his funeral, burial, and his estate, should something happen to him. This trauma has triggered nearly unbearable anxiety and depression, including heart palpitations, constant shortness of breath, daily crying spells, bipolar behaviors, chronic aches and pains, eye inflammation, infections, and binge eating. This anxiety and depression have spawned years since I was about 19, and this was part of the reason I also put a halt on college at the time. or at that time. Even though I had a decade of not caring about myself and I let myself go physically a lot, I kept a positive frame of mind. But I continued to stay strong as a rock, thinking positive with determination. Not even an entire Vatican could break up. In the fall of 2006, I went back to school and finished my associate degree in spring of 2009. In 2009, I started working with Full Access, now Mentor Oregon. Now that I'm in Eugene and Full Access is full, and have been lucky to have had really great care providers who got me started on the road to recovery and caring more about myself. Though I believe this will be easier when I'm no longer obese. I'm also on the road to obtaining my bachelor's degree in German with a minor in, well, now it's just switched to, it's just the bachelor's degree of German. There's no minor in psychology now at the University of Oregon. This is the reason I moved to Eugene. I touch many in my hometown of Bend, mostly those I have worked with as well as my educators. My former mentor at Central Oregon Resources for Independent Living was watching my brain work. Or she loved watching my brain work. She moved to Portland to work and I haven't seen her in a while. Back in high school, my German teacher was amazed by my efforts, perseverance, and dogged pursuit. He allowed me to coordinate the Germans' visit that year, since the gal who hosted me when our class visited Germany for a month the previous summer, who could not show up my senior year. He had moved away from the area, which partly caused some depression as well. I also earned many school awards, including being featured in Who's Who among American high school students, which includes brief biographies and photos of 5% of the country's most successful students who are recommended by educators and schools. I also have a letter in bowling. From about 2000 to 2003, I served as secretary for 3 terms, as well as news and web editor and manager for Central Oregon Street Rod Association. Last fall, I sacrificed a 1,000 square foot townhouse I was renting for around $237 a month for a 450 square foot 1-bedroom place in Thurston, just so I could attend the university. And I started class just 2 days after moving to the area. And I plan to move. I moved to Eugene, and I'm now also a chapter representative for the Autism Society of Oregon, and I can sense myself moving further and further up the road to success. I want to continue to advocate for autism and those with disabilities until we have complete, fair rights and treatment, both nationally and internationally, including speaking around the globe and nationwide. I'm also a successful language student, entering my 8th year of German and 4 years each of French and Spanish. These are rusty, and just begun teaching myself Italian. The computer is another one of my talents. I've been using one since I was 9 years of age when we played games in school on the old Apple computers of the 80s. From there, I gained knowledge from the very first version of Microsoft Word on up to what we have now. I also experienced the beginning and the boom of the internet. My desire is to work and live and even possibly go to school abroad in Germany. So I think something abroad with Microsoft would be cool, or Apple. Preferably Apple now. So long as I could get SQL and programming training. I already know how to build websites, etc., and in school I plan to obtain my master's degree and PhD, maybe someday. I'm extremely ambitious, and I think the drive came from my mother, who always taught me that can't do anything. So I was always taught, I think I can, and she believed in me more than anyone on this earth. When early educators threatened to place me in ERC classes, my mom refused to let them. She knew I didn't need these and that I would be greatly successful. She loved me more than life itself. My German teacher persuaded me to go on because he saw in me an uncanny talent of languages. He was such a warm, fun-loving guy who thought the world of me, and we became close friends. He composed a 2 or 3 page letter of recommendation for me and soon after moved away. Ever since this time I have taken great encouragement. I've taken this great encouragement with me everywhere. And my speakings I would like to do include keeping a positive outlook, trauma, how to make it through hard times to keep your sanity with autism, being sure you have great support, keeping a positive outlook, never giving up, try to take a deep breath and repeatedly remind yourself that everything will be okay. Set goals for yourself, put your heart into what you love, and go for those goals. Don't even think about hurting yourself. A friend of mine threatened to do this, and I called the police and saved her life. The deputy assured me she was being taken to the hospital, and with some additional help, she's been better ever since. As a matter of fact, she was a silver. Well, she's gotten gotten 4 gold medals, and she's gotten some silvers and some bronzes and she got a silver and a bronze at the Olympic Games Nationals, and she's also the Special Olympic Games Nationals, and she has also had 2 regional gold medals. Actually, I think she's had 3 or 4 now. Nobody threatens their life in front of me, and I will call 911. That is my one thing that I don't allow. And be sure you have great support. My friend used to think no one cared about her and lived with a whatever kind of attitude. Don't do this. People care. You just have to make yourself get out there and meet them. And great relationships and friendships can happen when you least expect them. Whether it be a care provider, a parent, an educator, or a close friend, be sure you have someone you can turn to when you need help, and who will keep helping you until the mission is accomplished. When we moved to Oregon when I was 5 years old, I'd only had preschool. When I turned 6, I was put in first grade without kindergarten. My teacher noticed me playing on my glue, etc. And when I would go out after school and ask my mom if I had to go to school the next day, I would vomit from relief if she said no. This tells you how stressful it was for me. I even choked on my own vomit in the car once. I could do the work, but was not emotionally ready for the first grade quite yet. Well, the teachers thought I needed ERC classes. This is where Mom came in. She told them, no way, not my daughter. She's too smart for that. She had believed in me from the beginning, always persuading me to think I can, and drove it into my brain that can't do anything. She helped out with my homework when I needed it as well. I could consult her about anything. My elementary and secondary teachers knew me as being a good student who was always helpful, and also through my mother, who was always the room mother at our school, doing parties and stuff for my class and for the school. She was a PTA co-president for a while. She felt helpless. She wasn't doing something. My mother was always a workaholic. She truly loved it. My German teacher was one who inspired me to go on with my languages, and would, upon wishing me luck, tell me I probably didn't need it anyway. I was so with it. When I entered VR some years later to find employment, I had 2 great women who could read me like a book, and hired a behavioral therapist to help with daily housekeeping and hygiene, as well as diet and nutrition. Well, this therapist read me perhaps even better than my VR ladies, and I learned a lot from her. She came up with the idea to place me on full access brokerage. They help the client hire individuals who are much like behavioral therapists, called care providers. They help you to take care of your home and your hygiene, as well as help you get out and about doing things in the community and exercising. They also have helped me with grocery shopping, cooking, and nutrition. My last provider in Central Oregon also aided in my move over here to Eugene. She spent a few days helping pack, clean up my place for the new tenants, and came over here with us, her and her husband, to help me move in and unpack, and I have been on the brokerage since spring of 2009. This process has certain requirements for consideration and placement, and after 3 tries, my first behavioral therapist managed to get me on. Now I want to do this for a friend of mine who is unable to get on, and I hope to advocate so that these requirements are far less complex in the future. Therapy pets, go about things yourself, take classes and workshops. I've done those. They help. You can do, healthy lifestyles, jewelry, that type of thing. We do a kind tree camp every year. It's a camp for people with autism over on the coast. I want to talk about school bullying, as well as educator abuse and discrimination. There's been some of that. And about how early intervention is a must. Take time to learn about your child's condition and get involved and educate their teachers and their school on the condition. This includes the students. Get an assembly together if you must. Nobody knew about autism because it wasn't as great as it is today when I was in school, and so I couldn't tell anybody what was wrong with me, and I wish I could have. And we just had a 14-year-old gal get abused by her teachers, and that'll also help prevent that too. and some tummy troubles. It's always a thing on with people on autism, and employment issues. They always struggle to find employment because people, employers don't understand their disabilities and stuff, and the whole thing just becomes real stressful. And in closing, I appreciate the opportunity to function on